Hi everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Season 7 of Mustang Prince Orro Reports. As we all know, on August 27th, 1964, a classical musical movie was released upon the world and has since then become one of the most treasured movies in Disney history. That movie was Mary Poppins. Directed by Robert Stevenson, and with classical songs by the legendary Richard and Robert Sherman, Mary Poppins is considered Walt Disney's crowning live-action achievement, and is the only movie that has earned a Best Picture nomination in his lifetime. Plus, the movie won 5 Academy Awards: Best Actress for Julie Andrews, Best Film Editing, Best Original Music Score, Best Visual Effects, and of course, Best Original Song for Chim Chim Chimery. Also, as seen in the movie Saving Mr. Banks, which I blogged many years ago, Mary Poppins was a very hard movie for Walt Disney to accomplish as a promise to his daughters, due to the late Helen Goff, aka P.L. Travers, being very difficult to work with. But aside from all that, I still believe Mary Poppins is a legendary musical movie, and as a child, I loved watching this movie from time to time. Also, believe it or not, Mary Poppins has been referenced a few times, like during a joke from Mr. Triplefin in Freddy Fish 2, a quote from Spy Fox 2,
like the old song says, a spoonful of LaRoche's fingerprint helps the steel door go down.
A scene in Aladdin the Animated Series. Even Aunt Tilly from Sophia the First and Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 referenced her. But now, after 54 years, Mary Poppins has finally returned to the big screen. Released on December 19th, 2018, the movie is Mary Poppins Returns. Now let's begin. Now an adult with 3 children, Michael Banks learns that his house will be repossessed in 5 days unless he can pay back a loan. His only hope is to find a missing certificate that shows proof of valuable shares that his father left him years ago. Just as all seems lost, Michael and his sister Jane receive the surprise of a lifetime when Mary Poppins, their beloved nanny from their childhood, arrives to save the day and take the Banks family on a magical, fun-filled adventure. So, what do I think? Well, 5 simple words. Practically perfect in every way. Well, maybe not as much as the first movie, but equally as perfect. But to further explain why I love the movie, let's move on to Mustang notes. The sequel to Mary Poppins had long been in development hell after the release of the 1964 movie. Walt Disney attempted to produce a sequel a year subsequent to the film's release, but was sadly rejected by author P.L. Travers, who openly dismissed Disney's film adaptation. In the late 1980s, then Disney chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg and vice president of live-action production Martin Kaplan approached Travers with the idea of a sequel set years after the first movie, with the Banks children now as adults and an older Mary Poppins with Julie Andrews reprising her role. Travers again rejected the proposed concept, except for Andrews' return. The studio shortly thereafter abandoned the effort. On September 14, 2015, Walt Disney Pictures president Sean Bailey pitched a new Mary Poppins film to Rob Marshall, John DeLuca, and Mark E. Platt, as the team had produced Into the Woods for the studio a year prior. With approval from Travers' estate, Disney greenlit the project, with the film taking place 25 years after the first movie, featuring a standalone narrative based on the remaining 7 books in the series. Marshall was hired to direct the movie, while DeLuca and Platt would serve as producers along with Marshall. David McGee was hired to write the script. Principal photography began on February 10, 2017, at Shepperton Studios in Surrey, England. Filming also took place outside the Bank of England in March 2017 and outside Buckingham Palace in April 2017. Principal photography was wrapped up by July 2017. Also, like the original film, this movie includes a sequence combining live action and traditional hand-drawn animation. The animation sequence was supervised by Jim Capobianco and Ken Duncan. Over 70 animation artists specialized in hand-drawn 2D animation from Walt Disney Animation Studios, Pixar, and other animation studios were recruited for the sequence. The animated drawings were created using pencil and paper and scanned them into computer to be digitally inked and painted. Character designer James Woods and animator James Baxter also helped redesign the penguins from the first movie. All the hand-drawn animation was created by Duncan's animation studio, Duncan Studios, in Pasadena, California. Now, aside from the animated sequence, which, in my opinion, is another nice breath of fresh air of traditional animation, and way better than another 2D animated film I've seen recently, the rest of the movie is very nostalgic, and, of course, the setting in London makes me think back to when me and my family visited London back in summer 2010. Also, the most memorable parts in this movie are when Admiral Boom fires his cannon every hour, the scene where Jane and Michael go through the attic, and the scene where Jack and his friends try to slow down Big Ben. The music and score for the movie was composed by Mark Shaman, with song lyrics written by Scott Whitman and Shaman. The score includes musical references to the songs and score from the first movie, written by the Sherman Brothers. Oh, and speaking of which, Richard M. Sherman served as music consultant, with Shaman stating that if he had something that he thought should be different or changed, he would have said so. And, lo and behold, he didn't. He loved what he was hearing, and he really loved the new movie. The first song in the movie is called Underneath the Lovely London Sky, sung by Jack, which, in my opinion, is another great opening London song. Plus, this song feels almost reminiscent to George's song, The Life I Lead, from the first movie. Next, there's Can You Imagine That?, which is sung while Mary Poppins prepares the children for their bath, and during the song, the kids and Mary go underwater. And, in my opinion, while this is pretty much trying a bit too hard to be the next Spoonful of Sugar, it feels almost like Beautiful Brainy Sea from Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and Anything's Possible from Seussical. Then there's the Royal Dalton Music Hall, which is sung while Mary, Jack, and the kids go on a carriage ride. In my opinion, this is one of my favorite songs in the movie, and it feels almost reminiscent to Jolly Holiday. Then we have another favorite of mine, A Cover Is Not the Book. In my opinion, this is a really toe-tapping song, not just because of the penguins and the other animals joining, but I think this song is a real showstopper, kind of like Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And it does teach a nice lesson to not judge anything by its cover, not even a movie's trailer. Next is The Place Where Lost Things Go, which feels like a nice lullaby song, kind of like Stay Awake and Feed the Birds. And I think this song gives a sweetened message to remind the children that while their mother is dead, she'll always be with them. We also have Trip a Little Light Fantastic, sung by Jack and his lamplighting buddies. During the song, they guide the children home while showing them how to speak their lingo. To me, this song is a lot of fun, and it feels almost like Step in Time. And it also has a really fun dance break. And finally, we have Nowhere to Go But Up, sung by Michael, Jane, Jack, and the children while they go for a balloon ride at the park. In my opinion, this is another great song, and it feels almost like Let's Go Fly a Kite from the first movie. And now that we're done with Mustang notes, let's move on to the cast. Our star of the movie, Mary Poppins, is played by Tempest Shadow / Juliet herself, Emily Blunt, who's also been in Hayao Miyazaki's The Wind Rises and Disney's Into the Woods. In my eyes, Mary Poppins is a wonderful character, and she can be fun at times, despite her no-nonsense behavior. Also, as a nanny, she is fairly stern, but she's also kind and nurturing. She's also shown to possess various magical items, including the ability to speak to animals and transport herself and others to various places, as well as flight with her umbrella. However, afterwards, she will deny any use of these powers and her many voyages and adventures, presumably to keep them a secret from the public. Plus, I think Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins makes a wonderful successor to Julie Andrews. Heck, she even made me believe that even the impossible can be possible. Plus, I think her para-umbrella is equally as funny as it was in the first movie. Next we have Jack, played by American composer, lyricist, playwright, and singer Lin-Manuel Miranda, best known for creating and starring in the Broadway musicals In the Heights and Hamilton. And he co-wrote the songs for Disney's Moana. Also, he'll be teaming up with Alan Menken to make new songs for the upcoming live-action Little Mermaid remake. Now, Jack is a Cockney lamplighter and Bert's former apprentice. In my opinion, Jack is a fun new character, and aside from his song numbers and the scene where he and his friends try to slow down the clock tower, I like when Jack uses his ladder to expand his bike and when he gives Mary Poppins and the children a ride on it. Plus, I think Jack has a romantic interest in Jane. Jane and Michael Banks are played by Ben Winshaw and Emily Mortimer. Not only is Michael a father and has 3 children to take care of, but he works as a part-time teller at Fidelity Fiduciary Bank and as a struggling yet widowed artist. However, like his father George, Michael is very strict and harsh with his children as a result of depression over his wife's death. Jane, on the other hand, works as a labor activist. Plus, she's still as kind, giggly, and innocent as she was when she was young. Also, Jane tries her best to help her brother look after the children and save the house from being repossessed. Next we have Michael's children, John, Annabelle, and Georgie, played by Nathaniel Sala, Pixie Davies, and Joel Dawson. In my opinion, the Banks children are pretty different compared to how their father and aunt were in the first film. They seem very independent and helpful to their father and housekeeper. However, when they're with Mary Poppins, they're surrounded by all sorts of surprises. And I think these kids are wonderful singers when they join in several of the songs. However, they also want to help their father save their home, especially after overhearing Wilkins' evil plan. Our next character is Mary Poppins' eccentric cousin, Topsy Poppins, played by Meryl Streep, who has been in Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events and Mamma Mia. Now, Topsy seems very similar to Mary Poppins' Uncle Albert from the first movie, but instead of floating from laughing, her room can go upside down at times. Plus, her song, Turning Turtle, is very reminiscent to I Love to Laugh. Also, it gives a little bit of a message about seeing things from a different point of view. Next, we have our main antagonist, William Wetherall Wilkins, played by Colin Firth, who got to be in Nanny McPhee and A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey. Now, this guy is the current president of Fidelity Fiduciary Bank and the nephew of Mr. Dawes Jr. While Wilkins acts very polite and charming, he's actually a ruthless and corrupt corporate executive. This is represented in the Royal Dalton Bull, where his counterpart is a wolf who pretends to be as docile as a lamb, signifying how Wilkins is a metaphorical wolf in sheep's clothing. Anyway, Wilkins drives the main conflict of the movie, and he seeks to repossess the bank's family home to the point of burning important records left by George Banks that would have saved the house. But thankfully, at the end of the movie, his uncle reveals that the tuppence that Michael deposited in the first movie was invested and gathered enough interest to be able to save the bank's home. In the process, Mr. Dawes Jr. stripped Wilkins of his position as the president of the bank. Now, aside from Mary Poppins, the Penguins, Jane and Michael, there are a few other familiar characters in the movie. For example, there's the bank's housekeeper, Ellen, played by Julie Walters, the bank's neighbor, Admiral Boom and Mr. Binnacle, played by David Warner and Jim Norton, and of course, Mr. Dawes Jr., played by the legendary Dick Van Dyke. Heck, even the original Jane, Karen Daughtris, makes an appearance in the movie. Though, I don't want to say who she is or when she appears. Besides, it makes a nice Easter egg. The rest of the cast includes Jeremy Swift, Kobna Holbrook-Smith, Carrick Frimpong, and of course, Angela Lansbury. And now, on to my final words. Overall, Disney has done a great job with Mary Poppins Returns. Not only is the movie very nostalgic, but it reintroduces us to familiar faces like Jane, Michael, Ellen, and Dawes Jr. Jack is a great and fun new character, though I do miss Bert. Topsy is pretty eccentric. The new Banks children, Annabelle, John, and Georgie, are wonderful. And the new villain, Wilkins, is very sinister. Plus, the animated sequence is awesome. The new songs feel very classical, and the choreography is toe-tappingly fun. And of course, the casting is practically perfect in every way. For those who love Mary Poppins, I highly recommend you guys see this movie and bring your family with you. Trust me, you'll be in for a real treat. And I do pray that Mary Poppins doesn't stay away for too long again. I give this movie... Oh, what the hey. I give this movie 100% rating. Well, that's it for today, everyone. Be sure to tune in next time, because next we're going into the Spider-Verse. Mustang Power.